Get ready for some hard-hitting podcast action as you're tuned in to the Slam Session. What's up, everybody, and welcome to a very special edition of the Slam Sessions. This week, we're going to be talking about Jim Ross after, unfortunately, JR lost his wife in a tragic accident just a day ago. So what I want to start by doing is just talking a little bit about JR and talking about his impact on the business. And I'm going to tell you guys a personal story about how Jim Ross had an impact on my life without even knowing it. First of all, I wanted to send my condolences to JR and his family during this hard time. It's never easy losing somebody, and to lose your partner, the person who you plan on spending the rest of your life with, has to be just one of the most difficult things to go through. So my thoughts and prayers are with JR and the Ross family, and I hope that eventually, he can be okay and move on from this, but this is an awful tragedy. So I'm going to start off just, really briefly, just by saying that JR is one of the most polarizing characters that is not a pro wrestler in the wrestling industry. You can hear a lot of stuff about what JR's done through his, through his podcast and through some of the stories he's told through, the interviews they've done on the WWE Network or on some of the WWE DVDs. So there's been a lot of stuff that, you can kind of go by when it comes to JR to see, just how big of an impact he had in the business. We know that he was, he worked behind the scenes. He was Cowboy Bill Watts' protege. He moved on up. He became an announcer. He announced for the NWA, WCW, WWE. He's now doing New Japan. So he's been the voice of a lot of different organizations, but nothing more important than being the voice of the Monday Night Raw during the Monday Night Wars. JR and Jerry Lawler's commentary through the Monday Night Wars were some of the best commentary that you'll ever hear in your life. And Jim Ross's impact on the business has been on just about anybody who put on a headset, because just about anybody who sits there and gets behind the microphone and is a fan of wrestling will tell you that Jim Ross has got to be one of their biggest influences. JR was a master at not only just knowing the holds, but knowing the stories behind each hold, and then knowing the story behind the match. There was a big shoot interview, quote unquote shoot, that Joey Styles did on Monday Night Raw, and he talked about how Jim Ross was taking off a commentary. Vince McMahon made Joey Styles sit in Jim Ross's chair, and they wanted him to be like Jim Ross, but Joey Styles was of a different philosophy during his announcing, kind of like an older school Jim Ross philosophy, where he would call all the holds for what he said, out of respect for the combatants in the ring, which is something that that for me, I've always kind of felt that that's kind of the way it should be. But I mean, look, it is what it is. It's everybody has different styles, but Jim Ross Joey Styles said that Jim Ross was a sports entertainment storyteller, and in essence, that's what we got out of JR. He was a sports entertainment storyteller. He told the story in the ring. He told the story behind the match. He told the story during the match. He told the story after the match. And he was amazing in what he did. There will never be anybody better, in my opinion. Nobody will ever be able to match the impact that Jim Ross had on the wrestling business, especially as an announcer. Now, speaking personally, I'm sitting right now in Studio B in the Connecticut School of Broadcasting. I graduated from CSB just a few short months ago. It was right around, I don't even remember. Right before I started this podcast. You see how this is where my life is at, that I can't remember these things. But one of the main reasons that I actually wanted to become an announcer, there were two. I've always wanted to be behind the mic. It's just something I've always wanted to do. And starting this podcast has been a huge deal for me. Even if, a lot of people don't listen, or even if a lot of people don't think it's good, it's a huge deal for me because this is something I've always wanted to do. So when I was young, I had, there was a problem with one of my, with the television in the living room at one point. And maybe it was just the feed of the New York Yankee game, but the feed went out. And my dad was like, "Oh crap, there's no sound." I said, "No, don't worry, Dad." And I was young, maybe about like 7 or 8. I said, "Don't worry, Dad, I'll announce it for you." And I did. And my father actually looked at me at 7. I must have been 7 or 8 years old, and he went, not bad. You're actually pretty good at that. Maybe this is what you should do. So, I always wanted to be the person on the field. Back at that time, at 8 years old, I wanted to either be a professional baseball player, an astronaut, or a professional wrestler. There's 3 very weird career choices for myself. And so, I always wanted to be the person on the field, but I went, man, how awesome would it be if I could be the announcer? So I grew up, and I started listening to the announcers even more. Started listening to the baseball announcers, started listening to the football announcers, but more importantly, what had the most impact on me is I started listening to the wrestling announcers. And actually, to be quite honest, the first person who ever caught my attention was Gorilla Monsoon, because Gorilla Monsoon had so much knowledge of the anatomy, that it taught me stuff about the anatomy. And then after that, I respected JR, but I really got hooked on Joey Styles because I was a big proponent on knowing the names of all the moves. I loved knowing the names of moves. It's something that I have always liked. If I see a move, I want to know what the name of it is. Why, if it's something new, this guy calls it that. Okay, great. Now I know that's the name of that move. Mauro Ranallo on SmackDown has been great in teaching me some of the names of the moves that they were used in Japan that we may have just called something different here in the U.S. because, maybe it's not, it's a less than common move here used in the U.S. Maybe somebody was only using it specifically as a finisher. Maybe it was just a descriptive name. Like, there's plenty of examples. I can't off the top of my head think of one right now. But Mauro Ranallo is great at that. But Joey Styles is always great. And I always loved, hearing him talk through a Lucha Libre match between Rey Mysterio and Psychosis and talk about all these moves that I've never seen before that he was calling. And I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. So Joey Styles really hooked me. But then I realized watching one day, it was an episode of Raw, and Bret Hart had, I believe it was Bret and Shawn were in the middle of their feud in, I want to say 97. And JR was doing commentary on that show, and something happened, and he just sounded so passionate. And I remember sitting there and thinking, that's who I want to be. I want to be Jim Ross. I want to be this guy who's so overly passionate about this industry, and I want it to show just through my words, because I don't need anybody to see my face. It's just through my words. And over the years, Jim Ross did just that. He kept you interested in Monday Night Raw, because let's face it, for years, throughout the the Attitude Era, maybe the commentary didn't mean that much, but then you switch over to WCW where interesting things were happening, and you hear Tony Schiavone bickering with Bobby the Brain Heenan, who's bickering with Larry Zbyszko, who's bickering with Scott Hudson, and they have like this different announcer turnover, and it's somebody different all the time. After a while, it's just annoying. And you switch to Raw, and here it is, a two-man commentary team, Jim Ross, Jerry the King Lawler, and they are flawless every week. Lawler is the heel. He knows his job. He is there to get the corporation over. Jim Ross is the babyface. He knows his job. He's there to get over the superstars in the ring, the moves that are happening in that ring, and also the babyfaces in that ring who are standing up against the authority. Or the corporation, actually. I'm sorry, at that point. You see how the newer stuff has kind of warped my brain. So, anyway. JR, was just this larger than life figure. And I decided at 18 years old that I wanted to become a broadcaster. I said, this is what I want to do for a living. I actually went to college and majored in communications. I was actually supposed to come to the school at 18, but monetarily things just didn't work out the right way. I never got the chance, which is why I went later. So Jim Ross had a very positive impact on my life, because I wanted to do what he did. I wanted to be the next Jim Ross. And still, to this day, if I ever have a dream job, it'd be doing play-by-play for the WWE. It is absolutely my dream job. And if I ever achieve that status, I will know that it was thanks to Jim Ross. So this episode, at this point, has just been dedicated completely to JR. And we all here. I know that there's not a lot of people who have their hands on this podcast, but for everybody at the Slam Sessions podcast and the Slam Sessions podcast network, we wish JR, the best, and we hope he can, find some peace in this very troubling time. With that being said, I don't know if last week, actually I'm positive, last week I didn't give a match of the week, so I'm going to give you guys 2 this week. But what I want to do something before that. This has been, kind of a downer of an episode, and I'm going to probably bring all of you guys down just a little bit more. And I say that because, it depends. If you guys are listening to me, if it's some of like my Click brothers, and if they know who they are, if they hear that, if it's some of my Click brothers, they're going to agree with me 100%. If it's a lot of the wrestling fans out there, they're not going to agree with me a lot. But this is something that I kind of need to just, get off my chest. I had a conversation the other day with someone who commented on a status of a friend of mine, because he was talking about how terrible the crowd was in New York this week. Now, if you watch Monday Night Raw, you cannot tell me that the New York crowd didn't suck. Again, always trying to put themselves over, and I'm sick of it. Why do you need to be a part of the event? You want to cheer and boo somebody? That's fine. I'm okay that you want to boo Reigns out of the building, even though I think you're morons for doing it. But if you want to boo Reigns out of the building, that's your prerogative. But stop with the stupid chants, the Derek Jeter chants. Stop with the CM Punk chants. Punk's not coming back. Stop with the stupid, silly BS chants that you guys do. I have not been to a WWE event since Extreme Rules, when Daniel Bryan defended his championship in the main event against Kane. Now, you have to remember, that's a bunch of years ago now. I have refused to return to a WWE event because I hate the crowd so much that I know that when I go there, I'm going to be miserable and pissed off to hear these guys chanting like morons. They are ruining my experience. My experience as a long-time pro wrestling fan is being shot because these fans think that they know better than everybody else. Little secret, you don't know how to book a wrestling show. You don't know how to book a wrestling match. You don't know how hard it is for people like Bayley and Nia Jax, who, you know what, maybe the match wasn't a 5-star match, but we're busting their asses out there to entertain you, and you chose to ignore them and chant stupid bullcrap the entire time. I'm kind of just sick of watching these shows and hearing this crap. So now, one of my friends said that he hates the crowds in Philly, in Chicago, and in New York. And then, of course, there's the typical IWC douchebag who, when I call him an IWC mark, he comes back at me with that whole stupid, well, everybody's on the internet and they talk about wrestling, so, that's an old thing. That's stupid. You sound like a moron. No, you douchebag. If you called somebody from the IWC, it means that you're the exact same person I'm talking about, the person who bitches and moans and complains about every goddamn thing that goes on inside the ring and think that you know better than the WWE, who is owned by a billionaire who produced the Attitude Era, produced all the wrestling you watch, and you guys wouldn't watch half of this crap if it wasn't for him, but you think you hope that he dies soon so that Triple H will take over the company. That's the way that you guys think. You're absolutely the most selfish, self-centered assholes on the planet. And this is the reason why sometimes it's hard for me to admit that I'm a Yankee fan, because some Yankee fans are such dicks that I don't even want to associate myself with that. But I don't carry myself that way. And I'm not going to carry myself that way about the WWE, because quite frankly, if they're going to put on a product, I'm going to watch it. They have me in the palm of their hand. No matter what, I am going to watch that show. Same thing with this kid, who is sitting there and bitching and moaning and complaining, but yet, if he didn't watch Raw, he would message one of my friends and say, hey man, what's going on Raw? If you don't like the product, don't watch and don't care. Don't watch WrestleMania. Don't watch the rest of the shows, because all you're doing is giving these people your money, your views, your ratings. You're not going to change the business by talking crap online. You're not going to change the business by chanting stupid shit over and over again. It's not going to happen. And here I am getting locked into a conversation with somebody who's sitting there and talking about, I don't understand why AJ Styles is a heel and Roman Reigns is a face when Roman Reigns gets booed and AJ Styles gets cheered. Because that's what they want them to be. Because SmackDown doesn't have any top heels. So they turned AJ Styles heel so he can wrestle the best wrestler in the business right now, the top guy in John Cena, beat John Cena 3 pay-per-views in a row, pin him clean. But you're still not happy because he's not a babyface? Come on. You will find anything to bitch about. And I'm sick of hearing the turn Roman heel thing, because look, and quite frankly, he's going to get booed out of the building against The Undertaker. They should pull the trigger now. And I don't disagree with that. There kind of wasn't any reason why Undertaker on Raw should come out and chokeslam Braun Strowman and then Reigns should spear Undertaker. Reigns should have speared Undertaker and spat in his face and told him that, and been a disrespectful prick. Told all the fans off. If you're going to go heel, go balls to the wall. Go crazy. Because Roman's going to get booed out of the building. Or at least just have him acknowledge it. Let him stay a babyface, but say, I know you guys want to see me win, but guess what? I'm better than The Undertaker, and I'm going to go out there and prove it. I'm going to shove it down all your faces. But I'm sick and tired of hearing these people bitch about this product and then turn around and tell me that they watched the show last night. If you hate it, stop watching it. I bitch about the Jets. Quite frankly, I bitch about the Jets a lot because I'm a Jets fan. And I'm so miserable about that team. But I won't sit there and actively just watch a game and tell everybody that they suck, then go online and post about and tell everybody that they suck. I will be honest. And if you want to just be honest and say, I don't like the way the product is right now, I think they can do a lot better, then be honest. Because quite frankly, last week when I talked to Tommy, he brought up a great point. And that's the fact that they just don't book their shows the same way anymore. There was always something entertaining that left you wanting more, and they don't do that anymore. And maybe that's something they need to bring back. So it's not perfect. This world isn't perfect. But if you're a wrestling fan and you're going to sit there and bitch every single day about wrestling, you're not a wrestling fan. You're just a hater, and you just you just think that you know better than everybody else. And guess what? You don't. That's about going to wrap it up here on the Slam Sessions podcast for this week. Just a viewing note. This week there is not going to be a opening whistle, and it doesn't look like there's going to be a Geek Guy podcast this week either. Quite frankly, Avi and I went an hour on free agency last week, and there really isn't much more to cover on that. And also with the Geek Guy podcast, I planned on doing a review of a movie that I haven't seen yet. I was planning on seeing it yesterday, and I didn't get a chance to, so I might just do that next week. Other than that, I don't have a whole ton of stuff to talk about, and I don't want to waste you guys' time. So this will probably be the only podcast this week. With that being said, we're on the road to WrestleMania. So what I wanted to do is give you a couple of my favorite WrestleMania matches to watch. So first of all, I'm going to give you one of my favorite matches of all time. It's obviously WrestleMania 3, Randy Savage versus Ricky Steamboat. If you guys have not watched this match, go do yourself a favor. Go on the WWE Network, pull that match up, watch it, because even to this day, it stands the test of time. WrestleMania 3, two of the greatest athletes walked into that ring, and they put together one of the greatest matches that you will ever, ever see. And if you haven't watched it, you need to. And if you have watched it, it's time to watch it again. I don't care when the last time you saw it. I don't care if you finished watching it and turn on this podcast. Go watch it again, because it is that good of a match. And if we want to talk about WrestleMania matches that I thought were phenomenal, Mick Foley versus Edge, the hardcore match at WrestleMania. The finish of that match was just one of the sickest things I've ever seen, and quite frankly, it is the best hardcore match I think I may have ever seen, at very least produced by the WWE, maybe produced by anybody. Edge brought his A game, and Mick, even in his state where he wasn't 100%, we know he's never been 100% ever since, a lot of the injuries he's taken, so he took a lot of sick bumps on that night, and they put together one of the greatest matches I've ever seen, especially in a hardcore setting. So do yourselves a favor. Go watch those two matches. That's my match of the week from last week, my match of the week this week. With that being said, once again, we offer our condolences to the Jim Ross family for the loss of his wife. And we're all thinking and praying for you, JR, and for your family. We'll keep you in our thoughts and our prayers. So I'm Albert Albanese for the Slam Sessions and the Slam Sessions Podcast Network. We'll see you guys next time.
Listening to the Slam Sessions. Find us on Twitter @the Slam Sessions. We'll see you next time.